Okay, week 6, lesson 1. I want to help you further along with the caged chords. The first thing I want to do is talk to you a little bit about the 3 different shapes of G chord. Now, we've worked with a G chord in the past, but this time I want to show you that there are actually 3 different fingerings that you might want to use and eventually should know, because in different songs they are useful. One shape over the other is more useful than in different songs. So the first thing we want to do, most people tend to play a G chord with their first, second, and third fingers. And most of the students I've ever seen naturally seem to gravitate this way. This was the way I usually played it myself. Some people use their second, third, and fourth fingers to play that same chord. Either way is fine. They both have their use. There's a third way. I'm going to go back to the first, second, third finger. And what we're going to do is take the third finger over here. Right now it's on the first string. I'm going to move it over one string to the D note on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, and I'm going to put the pinky in behind it on the 1st string at the 3rd fret, and then put my other fingers back. So what we have here, we've got 4 fingers on the G chord. This is a really very common chord when you're talking about music by bands like AC/DC and Led Zeppelin. It's a slightly richer sounding chord, a little bit heavier than the 3-finger version. To me, the difference, it's a very subtle difference, but it's sort of a difference between a rock G chord and a folk music G chord. If you listen carefully, you hear the difference. Difference, of course, is on that 2nd string in the 3-finger G chord, where we've got the open string, which is the note B, which belongs in the G chord. In the other version, we've got the note D, which also belongs in the G chord. Either note's fine. Okay? So there's the 3 varieties of G chord. You want to practice each of these because they each will appear at certain times in certain songs. They each have their use and they have their time. Okay? Now, as I said, my natural inclination most of my life was the 3-fingered with the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or else with that extra note in there. But for the example I'm about to show you with the C and the G7 chord, I'm going to have you playing the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th finger for the G chord. Okay? When you're deciding which of these 3 G shapes you're going to use, there's a couple of guidelines. It's very helpful when you're using the 4-finger G chord if you need to go to a D chord, okay? Because your 3rd finger is already there on the note D, ready to go to the D chord. So a lot of times if I know I'm going to go from G to D, I'm going to choose the 4-finger G chord so that I can just go back and forth between the G and D. And what do we call that finger there? That's called a pivot finger. So that's very helpful. Okay? This chord here, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd finger version of the G chord, I don't know, just you happen to be strumming away, it seems like the easiest one to grab. So it's sort of the default choice, I guess. The 2nd, 3rd, and 4th finger version of the G chord, to me it's a little trickier. To a lot of people it's a little trickier. It has a use though, and I'm going to get into that use a little bit more in lesson 2. I'll touch on it just briefly right here. If we ever need to go from the G chord to a C chord, some people find that it's easier to do that because these 2 fingers are already in the shape of a C chord. All right? That's basically the criteria that I use to choose which G chord am I going to play. Am I going to use the 2, 3, 4, the 1, 2, 3, or the 4-finger version? Okay?